What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Wrestling for Life Network, and welcome back to another edition of the TNA Impact Review plus Emergence. Yes, we will be covering the big monthly special Emergence. A lot has happened in the world of TNA wrestling. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Welcome back to the Wrestling for Life Network, and welcome back to another edition of the TNA Impact Review. Man, TNA Impact this week cooked. I think it was a great episode. We had a surprising banger between Mike Santana and Eddie Edwards. They tore the house down in their match on this week's episode of TNA Impact. And then we had this huge unknowing match by Elegance for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. It was Jordan Grace defending against Ash by Elegance, and what a phenomenal main event this was. TNA really cooked with Impact this week. We'll go over just a couple of the matches that went down, and then we'll turn our attention to Emergence that happened the Friday after Impact. That was a stacked show. We had a 1 hour Iron Man match between Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander that really set the entire pay-per-view. It was the main event, but they killed that entire match. It was a phenomenal match. So we'll get all into Emergence as well today. But yeah, like I said, we'll cover a little bit of TNA Impact and we'll get right into Emergence. So the night before Emergence, Eddie Edwards went one-on-one with Mike Santana. And if you know, at Emergence, they were on opposing sides. Eddie Edwards being a part of the system, and Mike Santana teaming up with Joe Hendry and the Hardy Brothers to take on the system in a big 8-man tag team match. And this match between Mike Santana and Eddie Edwards happened the night before. And obviously, this was all about momentum. Mike Santana did pick up the victory, but this was a phenomenal match from start to finish. I think 2025 is going to be the year of Mike Santana in TNA wrestling. I really believe he is going to capture the TNA World Championship in 2025. I know coming back to TNA, his goal was to eventually get back to the World Championship picture and capture the TNA World Championship. And I believe 2025 will be that year for Mike Santana. Eddie Edwards, I feel like, always delivers in his matches. He had one match last year with Will Ospreay that was excellent. Eddie Edwards is that mainstay in TNA wrestling. They delivered in this match. They really delivered. Surprisingly good match on a random episode of TNA Impact. And I'm not saying that, when they have episodes of TNA Impact, they're not good matches. Every week there is 2 or 3 matches that really hit home. And this week, this one was one of them with Eddie Edwards and Mike Santana. Really great match. Kudos to these guys. And it's like every week, TNA tops the prior week's episode of Impact. And I feel like that's how it's supposed to be. You continue in storylines, you're giving us great matchups. TNA is really cooking in this moment. And if you're not watching, I feel like you need. Another match that went down on this week's episode of TNA Impact was Joe Hendry versus Brian Myers. Another, 2 people on the opposing teams at Emergence happening in a one-on-one match the night before Emergence. This was another great match won by Joe Hendry. And I briefly want to talk about how Joe Hendry is just everywhere in professional wrestling right now. This coming Sunday, he will be at NXT No Mercy challenging for the NXT Championship against Ethan Page, which I'm excited to see. And I think we might get some type of interference from some TNA wrestler to further a storyline in TNA wrestling. I'm thinking that person could be Josh Alexander. It also could be Moose, because Joe Hendry is the only person to pin Moose in the past, I believe 2 years. So it could be Moose, it could be Josh Alexander. But remember, that match is going down at NXT No Mercy this Sunday. But the match between Brian Myers and Joe Hendry was another great showing of matchups on TNA Impact this week. Joe Hendry picked up the victory. Brian Myers and the system took 2 L's in one night. Shockingly, you would think they would potentially lose at Emergence too. We'll get to that a little later, but yeah, another match that you should check out from this week's episode of TNA Impact is Brian Myers versus Joe Hendry. Hammerstone is back in the full swing of TNA wrestling. He was out for a couple of months with an injury. He is back, and he had a match with Eric Young on this week's episode of TNA Impact that I thought was great. You got a TNA original in Eric Young versus an up-and-comer in TNA and Hammerstone. They delivered in this match, and you had Steve Macklin at commentary because at Emergence, Steve Macklin will be facing Eric Young, and Hammerstone would be in the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship at Emergence. So yeah, Steve Macklin kind of needed to be there on commentary, but another match that really delivered. And Alex Hammerstone's finishing move, I think it's called the Nightmare Pendulum or Pendulum. That move is insane. That move is insane. I love to see it every time Alex Hammerstone performs that move, but I'm not surprised that Alex Hammerstone won here because I think in 2025, just like I said with Mike Santana, Alex Hammerstone has to be in the talks and in the mix of the TNA World Championship picture. I believe he will get there. 2025, we have to look out for two individuals. We got to look out for Alex Hammerstone and we got to look out for Mike Santana. It's going to be a breakout year for Alex Hammerstone, and it's going to be a year of reestablishment for Mike Santana. And I'm looking forward to what they do with these two in the coming year. You got to keep your eyes glued on Alex Hammerstone and Mike Santana. There's one more match before we move on to Emergence that I want to talk about, and that is Match by Elegance with Jordan Grace defending the TNA Knockouts World Championship against Ash by Elegance. And this was a main event. This match was excellent. Jordan Grace delivered. Ash by Elegance delivered, and I feel like it is time for people to stop dog walking Dana Brooke, Ash by Elegance, and give that woman her flowers because she took this match to her ultimate limits. And I think it was phenomenal to see. I think Jordan Grace really brings the best out of every opponent that she faces, not just in her TNA Knockouts World Championship reign, but just as a whole. She forces people to come out their shell and just bring it in their matches. And I've seen it with multiple wrestlers. Tasha Steeles is one of them. Giselle Shaw is one of them. Trinity or Naomi in WWE is one of them. She brings out the best in people, and I believe she brought out the best in Ash by Elegance. And I also believe Jordan Grace said on Twitter that this was her favorite match so far in 2024. And just think of the matches she has had this year, and this one is her favorite. She's faced off against Trinity, Giselle Shaw, Miya Yamashita, Roxanne Perez in NXT, just a number of opponents. And this was her favorite one of the year. This was her favorite match of the year. This is one of those matches that if you don't watch anything else on TNA Impact this week, watch the 14-minute match. Watch that 14-minute banger that these two women put on. I think it was great. And we went into this not knowing really what this match by Elegance was going to be. We didn't know if it was just going to be some fancy bedazzled stuff. We didn't know, right? We went into this kind of blind, and then we found out it was a anything goes, falls count anywhere match. And the Elegance part of the match was that all of the weapons that were used were kind of, bedazzled, right? So we had like a pink chair, a pink kendo stick. We had flowery things around the trash cans that were used as weapons. The trash cans were colored like in pink decorations as well. So this was basically a street fight with elegant weapons. And I believe this match delivered in every sense of the word. Please go check out this match. It is full on YouTube, 14 minutes. And before we move on, I do want to say that everybody and their mama got involved in that match by Elegance. Danny Luna, Jody Thread, Rosemary, Masha Slamovich, Alicia Edwards, everybody and their mama got involved with that match. But it was a great match to see. And if I didn't mention it, Jordan Grace did retain the TNA Knockouts World Champ. Now let's get into some emergence. I'm going to run down the full card for you. We won't be talking about all of the matches. We'll be talking about some of the highlights of some of the matches, but I'm going to run down the full card for you if you didn't know what happened at emergence. So here is the full card. PCO defended the TNA Digital Media Championship and the International Heavyweight Championship against Shira. We had Kushida versus Frankie Kazarian, and both of these matches were on the countdown to Emergence. We opened up Emergence with the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. We had Zachary Wentz, Hammerstone, Mike Bailey defending the X Division Championship. We had Jason Hotch, Riley Osborne from NXT, and Laredo Kid. Next up, we had Steve Macklin versus Eric Young. We had the System versus Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, Joe Hendry, and Mike Santana. We had the 6-person tag team match with the Knockouts, Jordan Grace teaming up with Spitfire, and Ash by Elegance teaming up with Alicia Edwards and Masha Slamovich. And in the main event of Emergence, we had Nick Nemeth defend the TNA World Championship against Josh Alexander, and we had a special tag team match, ABC defending against First Class. So that was the full card for TNA Emergence this week. I don't think I've seen a bad Ultimate X match yet. This was phenomenal. I did not expect Zachary Wentz to win. Let me just get to that point. I did not expect Zachary Wentz to win. I thought Mike Bailey would retain. He just won it at Slammiversary. So I was assuming they were going to give him, somewhat of a lengthy reign, 2-3 months. They gave him like 30 days. But this was a great match won by Zachary Wentz. So that means Zachary Wentz heads to NXT No Mercy as the X Division Championship as he faces off against one former member of the Rascals and Wesley. But if you haven't seen the Ultimate X match yet, I believe you should go out and check out this one. High spots, high moments, fast-paced action. I thought Hammerstone was going to win at once. I thought Riley Osborne was going to win at one point in this match. And I just want to point out that Riley Osborne is the first contracted WWE superstar to ever wrestle in Ultimate X. This was a great showing, and I'm happy that when they have these Ultimate X matches that it kicks off the pay-per-view. I think it sets the tone for the remainder of the show, and all of these gentlemen in this match really set the tone for the remainder of the show. Kudos to all of the men in this match. They delivered in this Ultimate X. I did want to touch on that Steve Macklin did defeat Eric Young in this one-on-one match. This was a first time ever match, and Steve Macklin did pick up the victory. And Steve Macklin is on his way back to the TNA World Championship. That is his main goal right now. And his first step was defeating Eric Young, a TNA original, which he did at Emergence. Jordan Grace teamed up with Spitfire to take on Ash by Elegance and Militia, and chaos ensued when the bell rang with this match, but the chaos ultimately ended with an injury to Alicia Edwards, and I believe it was a concussion. She was knocked out cold and had to be carried to the back by Tommy Dreamer. Speedy recovery for my queen, Alicia Edwards. I love her in TNA wrestling. But I feel like that injury kind of put a damper to the excitement around this match. I still think it was a great match, won by Jordan Grace and Spitfire, but speedy recovery for Alicia Edwards, and I hope she's okay. But this was another match you had to go out of your way to see as well. I think it was great. Like I said, I feel like it was dampened a little bit with the Alicia Edwards injury, but that's what happens in professional wrestling. It's a combat sport. Injuries happen. We just hope the best for the injured superstar, the injured wrestler. And in this case, it was Alicia Edwards. But like I said earlier, Jordan Grace and Spitfire did pick up the victory. I have a question though in my head. If Alicia Edwards didn't get injured, was this still the outcome of the match? Was it going to be Jordan Grace and Spitfire picking up the victory? Because I really thought Ash by Elegance and Militia was going to pick up the victory here, even though I went for Jordan Grace because you just don't bet against Jordan Grace. I really thought to further the storyline with Ash by Elegance potentially, if we get that third match at Bound for Glory, that Ash by Elegance and Militia should have won this match. So I think I'm gonna always have that question in the back of my mind: is if Alicia Edwards didn't get injured, would we have seen a different outcome to this match? Would Ash by Elegance and Militia won this match? We'll never know, but kudos to the women in this match. Speedy recovery for Alicia Edwards. This is one match I believe you should go watch from Emergence. Next up, we got the System versus Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Joe Hendry, and Mike Santana in this big 8-person tag team match. And the system won, and I did not trust the system because I thought Team Joe Hendry was going to win. Speaking of Team Joe Hendry, I want to point out that they mashed up Joe Hendry's theme song with the Hardy Bros theme song. I thought that was pretty cool. But yes, the system won this match. This was a whole train wreck and a half. The ref couldn't even contain all of these men to the right, their right corners in the ring. Just chaos everywhere. And I thought this was a really fun match. It was everything I expected except for the system winning. I was not expecting that. The system seems like they're trying to gain their momentum again. The system is trying to gain some power back in TNA wrestling after losing the majority of it at Slammiversary, with Alicia Edwards the only one holding gold in the system. So is this the moment when we see the system kind of reform and regroup and regain some advantages in TNA wrestling? Maybe so, because I really thought this might have started the downfall of the system. But with this big victory happening at Emergence, I think the system may be trying to regroup and rethink and recreate and get some magic going in that group so they can move on and win some gold again in TNA wrestling. Phenomenal match by all 8 of the men in this match. This is another one, and I feel like I say this with all of the matches. This is another one I feel like you need to go see. It's on the TNA Plus app. If you have it, it's free. Watch it. It's a golden match. And we are at the main event. Match of the year candidate, match of the weekend candidate, because we still have Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy to happen over the weekend. But Nick Nemeth defended the TNA World Championship against Josh Alexander in a 1-hour Iron Man match. And it was everything I expected. I expected this match to start off very, very slow and methodical and then pick up the pace as we get closer and closer to that hour mark. This was so fun to watch. Josh Alexander, one of the best pro wrestlers in the world, not in TNA, one of the best pro wrestlers in the world, period. Nick Nemeth, one of the best pro wrestlers in the world as well. These two collided in a head to head bout that was great. And Nick Nemeth, halfway, in the match, early on in the match, scored 2 big pinfalls on Josh Alexander. And I kind of got scared for a minute. I was like, Josh Alexander, how are you going to respond? But for a good half of that match, it was 2-0 for Nick Nemeth. Nick Nemeth had 2 pinfalls. Josh Alexander had none. And Josh Alexander, since he is a heel now, had to resort to cheating to get 2 back-to-back pinfalls. He hit him with some type of weapon that was hidden in his knee pads or his wrestling boots. He hit him with that weapon, hit him with the C4 spike, 1, 2, 3, hit him with another C4 spike, 1, 2, 3. We got 2-2 up with Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander tied. We are tied. We are about 20 minutes left into this huge 1 hour Ironman match. And at this point, someone has to score another pinfall. We had Josh Alexander hit Nick Nemitz's signature move. We had Nick Nemeth do the same thing to finally score the third pinfall with about 10-ish seconds on the clock. Nick Nemeth hit a C4 spike. 1, 2, 3, 3-2 Nick Nemeth's way. He wins the 1 hour Ironman match. I paraphrased this match very quickly in like 2 to 3 minutes, but that hour told a story. That hour told a story of a professional wrestler versus, I believe, Josh Alexander said, a sports entertainer. That's what this hour told. It told a story of a professional wrestler versus a sports entertainer. And Nick Nemeth showed that he is a pro wrestler in this hour Iron Man match. It was excellent to see. Again, I'm going to say it, and I know y'all sick of me of saying it, but this is another match that you have to go out and out of your way to see, because this is easily a match of the year candidate and a match of the weekend. Because, like I said, we still have Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy. So go check out this 1 hour Iron Man match. Again, it is on the TNA Plus app. All right, guys, this is the wrap up of the TNA Impact review with Emergence. This was a great episode. We covered TNA Impact, we covered Emergence, everything that's going down. The next pay-per-view or monthly special on the docket for TNA Wrestling is Victory Road. That is roughly in about 3 weeks, I believe. I do also know on this next episode of TNA Impact, Jordan Grace will be having an open challenge for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. So that is something we could look forward to next week heading into TNA Impact. Again, I thank you guys for watching. I will be back next week with another review of all things TNA wrestling. I might even start talking about Explosion, because some of the matches that go down on Explosion are great as well. But again, I am your host, Ringsider Anthony, and I will see you in the next one.